These are extremely exciting times for tourism on Prince Edward Island. With 3 years of terrific growth in our sector, we all need to boast about the success and be proud of our accomplishments. As we build on this in the years ahead, this positive trending is vital to our economic growth. Tourism is one of the strongest sectors in supplying continual economic impact to our island. Today, we will introduce recommendations from a strategy process that started back in April. Tourism Matters PEI Vision 2021. I must remind everyone that change is never easy, but we all must set the bar high in order to attain ongoing success. That's why we hired TDI, Tourism Development International, to get the perspective of individuals with worldwide tourism expertise looking from the outside in. They have now completed the work we asked them to, and focus today shifts back to all of us to make the vision a reality. We knew from the start of the process this would not be achievable without the involvement in industry stakeholders taking the lead in the development of the strategy. The Stakeholder Working Committee involved volunteers committing to a process that supported what they are passionate towards, seeing continued sustainable growth in our industry that built on the momentum created during the past 3 years. Since April, that process has included over 19 committee meetings. Now that is showing commitment. In addition to Robert and I as co-chairs, this committee includes, and I'd like to point out the individuals that have been involved from the start. James Tingley, General Manager of the Delta Prince Edward and PEI Convention Center, TIPI Board Member and President of the Board, Meetings and Conventions PEI. Chef Michael Smith, Television Personality, Culinary Spokesperson and Owner-Operator of the Inn at Bay Fortune and Fireworks, Eastern PEI. Perry Gotel, Owner-Operator of Tranquility Cove Adventures, Experiential Tourism, Eastern PEI. Doug Newson, CEO, Charlottetown Airport Authority, Transportation, Central PEI. Rachel Vidito, General Manager, the Great George, Manager of Hotel Operations, Murphy Hospitality Group. Tracy Singleton, the President of Versatile Management, providing organization for major events such as the Shellfish Festival, Jack Frost Festival, the Festivals of Wines, Arts and Heritage, Trail Guide, etc. Partner in cottage operation, Cavendish Bosom Buddies, Cottages and Suites. Jay McDonald, B&B Operator, Elmwood Heritage Inn, Charlottetown Central. Charlie Sark, Aboriginal Tourism Association of Canada, Lennox Island First Nation, family-owned craft and giftware shop on Lennox Island in Western Prince Edward Island. Albert Arsenault, Board Member of the North Cape Coast Tourism Area Partnership, Western PEI, and also representing our funders, Patrick Dorsey, a COA Vice President, Funding Partner, Federal Government. Rob McCluskey, Director General, Tourism Atlantic, Funding Partner, Federal Government. Neil Stewart, Deputy Minister of Economic Development and Tourism Funding Partner, Provincial Government. Cheryl Painter, CEO of Tourism PEI, Funding Partner of the Provincial Government. Chris Jones, Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Provincial Department of Economic Development and Tourism, and Bernadette Power, Tourism Account Manager with ACOA. Consultation was the #1 priority to get input and feedback with tourism sector focus groups, public forums, stakeholder and trade surveys, the most effort in engaging our industry ever undertaken in a strategy development with over 745 involved throughout this process. The focus from the beginning has been the 5 pillars, including leadership, product development, market positioning, communications access, and infrastructure facilitation, as well as human resources priorities. Today, what will be presented is a big picture view of where we've been, backed up by extensive research, where it's possible to go in the future, and a high-level 10,000-foot broad-term recommendations for ways to achieve greater success using short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. Working together for the betterment of our industry as a whole with set goals and logical, achievable, and fiscally responsible deliverables. Now is the time to be innovative and inspired in taking the island to the next level. Let's build on what we have and inject excitement in the process. Industry must continue to be involved, assisting developing the next steps and seeing those steps through the success over the next 5 years. I'd now like to introduce Peter McNulty and Karen Toot of Tourism Development International as they present the recommendations of Vision 2021. This is, again, the piece that will guide the future of Prince Edward Island's tourism industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Kevin, and it gives me great pleasure on behalf of my colleague Kieran Chute and indeed the other members of the TDI team, Stan Cook, Robert Travers and David McNulty, to present to you here today the Strategic Plan for Tourism 2016-2021. In so doing, I would like to echo the words of Kevin in acknowledging the tremendous support and cooperation and input that we received from the many stakeholders that we've worked with over the last 8 months, many of whom are in the room here today. So a big thank you on behalf of TDI for your tremendous support and participation, because after all, this is your strategy. And we are excited by it, and we hope by the end of today's presentation you will share that excitement. I would also, before we start, at a personal level, wish to extend our appreciation to all the members of the working group for their support and very professional approach in working with the consultants throughout the 3 stages of the project, and that made for a very streamlined approach to bring us here today. So we look at the contents of our presentation, and before doing so, we have an opportunity here now to move Prince Edward Island from being a good destination to a truly great one of the great tourism destinations in North America. And we will explain how we propose doing that as we move through the presentation. We will look at the situation analysis, vision, principles and strategic objectives, strategic recommendations, goals and targets. Now, in looking at this situation analysis, Kevin mentioned the fact about the extensive consultation and research, and I'd just like to elaborate a little bit on that. We undertook at TDI a program of trade research with tour operators, travel writers and journalists in each of PEI's key external markets, to get their views on the current situation and what the potential opportunities for tourism development were in Prince Edward Island. And that has indeed informed the recommendations here. We also looked at, and we will show some of this information, at a number of case studies from throughout the world, and indeed elsewhere in Canada. We undertook, as we've said, focus group discussions at a sectoral level here in Prince Edward Island, a trade survey of private operators, and indeed consultations with private and public sector agencies. On top of all of that, there has been an extensive body of work already undertaken by Tourism PEI, ACOA, TAIPI itself, and obviously we have reviewed all of that material that has been assembled over the last 3 to 5 years. Okay. So, in terms of the current situation, the first conclusion that we've arrived at is that the organisation structures in Prince Edward Island are top-heavy with unnecessary duplication and fragmentation. There is a need for a sector-neutral destination management body for the province, and obviously we'll be elaborating on this as we move forward. PEI's tourism product, with some exceptions, has stayed relatively constant in the past 2 decades. The island currently offers a surprisingly thin portfolio of outdoor soft adventure. And current PEI marketing presents a rich summertime product with a very strong, without a very strong brand positioning. The resources devoted to visitor servicing are very considerable indeed. However, there's a proliferation of printed materials which have questionable impact on generating additional business. Marketing activity by the Confederation Bridge appears to have largely ceased, and in our view this is a lost opportunity. The improved operation of the ferry service is strategically critical to the island's tourism success, and expansion of air services is a priority. Labour force supply is one of the most pressing issues which needs to be addressed, and particularly on the back now of a number of very good seasons. This is a key issue. The responsibility for island-wide tourism industry training needs to be grasped, and industry decision makers need to be better served by relevant, clearly communicated market research as distinct from statistics. So, what about our recommendations? Firstly, a new vision is proposed for PEI tourism sector. Significant institutional changes are proposed. The product development strategy for Prince Edward Island will comprise a combination of product consolidation based upon existing products, and there's some great products out there, and product diversification based on new products and experiences. The Prince Edward Island Coastal Circuit, the PEI Coastal Circuit, is proposed as a flagship project. In addition to that, 6 major product development initiatives are also proposed. And in terms of human resources, the priorities and the issues identified in Taipei's 2014 Strategic Business Plan continue to require implementation. So in order to compete, PEI's tourism industry must create more enriching experiences for the consumer. The destination needs to position itself as a rejuvenating lifestyle brand which offers life-enriching experiences. So therefore, a new brand positioning is proposed. And that is that Prince Edward Island is small in size, but incredibly abundant in stunning sceneries, outdoor activities, culinary delights, cultural product, friendly people, and authentic experiences. Its size is one of this island's greatest assets. You are never far away from your next adventure. So that's the positioning that we're proposing. And then the vision statement that will be developed from that will incorporate a number of key points and principles, picking up on the positioning as we've seen: premier maritime, island destination, living cultural heritage, authentic experiences. These are the key values. And in terms of markets, we're looking to sustain the family market, to appeal to activity special interest markets, and to attract high-value markets, both US and international, not forgetting the very important meetings and conventions market, which delivers valuable business during off-peak times. So in terms of economic contribution, we're looking at further tourism growth, development of added value products, focus on quality and diversity, extended season, and increased yield. So what are the principles that are going to drive this strategy? They are built upon, first and foremost, partnership, collaboration, and cooperation. It's so important to tourism, and that's talking about partnership at 3 levels: public-public, public-private, and private. So where we're talking about the federal agencies there that have a key role, including ACOA, Parks Canada and Canadian Heritage, and at the provincial government level, we're talking about the departments responsible for tourism, economic development, culture, and workforce. The other principles are product development based upon flagship clusters, trails, and circuits. So it's a strategic approach that we're taking to product development. Market positioning and targeting, and you've seen some of the recommendations already on that. And then drawing on best practice elsewhere. And you'll see that we have done that in setting out our recommendations. So what are the strategic objectives? Firstly is to creation of unique, high-quality visitor experiences based on the island's rich mix of culture and natural product. To strengthen the data collection and market research capabilities to better understand the consumer. To use research and funds for marketing to optimally target and communicate with these markets. And we now know, we've ample evidence that the way in which we communicate is ever evolving. To revisit structures with a view to reducing unnecessary duplication and administrative burdens. To ensure a committed, skilled and professional industry leadership and workforce. And to improve visitor services to fulfill the promise of those expanded and more targeted marketing efforts. So that brings us on to the goals. And you see we've set out goals under 5 headings here. And that is leadership, product development, marketing, access, and labor. So we take the first of those, leadership. The goal here is to create a stronger voice for tourism that inspires greater industry engagement with you, the stakeholders, that aligns and strengthens research and marketing that we've been speaking about, and product development, and reduces regulatory and administrative burdens within the industry. That's the goal for leadership. For product development, it's about creating new visitor experiences capable of playing a key role in differentiating Prince Edward Island as a destination, with a focus on key areas of soft adventure, which you'll be seeing, nature-based, culinary, and indigenous product supports the clustering of the product. In terms of marketing, the goal is to clearly communicate and effectively to a well-defined target audience with campaigns which are sufficiently and securely funded. And in terms of access, to ensure healthy access to the province by air, ferry and bridge, and supporting infrastructure for safe transportation throughout the province, to ensure adequate financing for start-up, expansion and modernisation of small and medium enterprises, to ensure a committed, skilled and professional industry leadership and workforce to professionally supply peak requirements and support shoulder season expansion. So that brings us on to the strategy. And you'll see, as Kevin has already mentioned, there are 5 pillars to the strategy. These relate to leadership, product development, market positioning and communications, access and infrastructure, and human resources. And across each of these 5 pillars, you'll note that cross-cutting each of those are the key themes of research and collaboration. They're essential to each of the 5 pillars. So let us look firstly at Pillar 1, leadership, and the proposals here for the strategy. So, as we said at the outset, significant changes are proposed under leadership. And that is the establishment of Visit PEI, and this is a working title, as an independent destination management organisation. Funding for Visit PEI would come from government through core ongoing activities, through a private sector levy, and on a partnership for cooperative marketing, where individual private sector organizations can partner on particular campaigns, be that in some of the target key markets elsewhere in Canada or internationally. We're also proposing a refocusing of TIPI as an advocacy, representation and professional development body for the main constituent groupings within the tourism industry. And finally, the reduction in regulatory and administrative burdens. So these are the key leadership recommendations under Pillar 1. If we move to Pillar 2, product development, the key theme here is offering authentic experiences, and the development strategy involves a mix of proven approaches here, including, based upon a pyramid really, flagship tourism project, nature-based soft adventure, major product development initiatives, and other supporting initiatives. So if we look at the flagship project, we're proposing the PI Coastal Circuit. And this is a working title that will need work from professional branding specialists. And what we're proposing here is that the project will involve an exercise in product consolidation based on PI's existing, 3 existing coastal drives. It'll become PI's leading experience brand. And in setting this out, the PI Coastal Circuit will become both a product development initiative and a marketing initiative. It will be designed to give visitors, consumers, a reason for visiting Prince Edward Island. It will become a platform for themed initiatives. A platform for themed initiatives based upon family vacations, culinary experiences, soft adventure, heritage trails, visiting historic sites and attractions, lighthouses, etc. Most importantly, it will be an initiative of scale capable of making an impact in the key markets. So the key objectives in terms of under the flagship tourism project will be to increase visitor numbers to Prince Edward Island and to extend the tourism season and dwell time, to create visitor experience capable of playing a role in differentiating Prince Edward Island as a unique and distinctive island destination, to reinforce the particular strengths and characteristics of Prince Edward Island's coastline while offering visitors a compelling reason to visit. Thinking in terms of the wonderful lighthouses around the coastline, the distinctive red shores, the churches on the landscape, the towns, the very, very attractive, pretty towns like Montague and Victoria. So all of these it'll be a showcase for all of these products and attractions and opportunities. And establish a tourism product experience of critical mass and address the issue of product fragmentation, which was very evident from the consultations and the research. And uniquely, as far as I'm aware in Canada, it'll be presenting visitors with an opportunity to undertake a full province tour. Okay, so this is an initiative of scale that can really, as we've seen from one of the examples that we'll be showing, for operators, be that a hotelier, a restaurateur, and an operator who provides experiential tourism product, crafts, the arts community, all can participate on this, and they can use the PI Coastal Circuit as an opportunity, a platform to participate in that particular program. It will enhance linkages between existing attractions and facilities. it'll become a platform for Prince Edward Island tourism enterprises and product providers to showcase their offer, and a platform for new product development initiatives. Such interventions are far more likely to have an impact as part of a cluster initiative. And that's a proven fact in tourism. Rather, if you have a business that starts up and starts up in isolation, has much tougher challenges than being part of a product cluster, and indeed that's what this is. And it will also assist in the spatial spread of tourism by directing visitors across the island from tip to tip. So here's two examples coming up of similar initiatives which we've drawn on in setting out the example. And the first of these is the Wild Atlantic Way, and this comes from Kieran and I, our own home country in Ireland. And this was an initiative that was introduced, work started on it 5 years ago, and it's called the Wild Atlantic Way, and it has been tremendously successful. It runs down through the, let me see if I can see, yeah, 2,000 kilometres long, 2,500 kilometres long down the entire west coast of Ireland. And this involved 12 municipal authorities, local authorities, and 3 tourism regions coming together to develop a consolidated tourism product under a single brand name, the Wild Atlantic Way. And so what you have is a situation, it has become so successful with the work started by developing common branding and signage put in the first year, 5 years ago, in the first years of the program. It has become so successful now that operators, be that hotels, guest houses, restaurants, etc., and other product providers, are now positioning themselves in their marketing collaterals. They're saying, come visit me, I'm on the Wild Atlantic Way. It is, as you can see, it's an initiative scale, one that is capable of making an impact in international markets. In a similar vein, in Switzerland, where earlier in the project we cited Switzerland as an example of best practice in signage and interpretation, in recent years, Switzerland has developed the Grand Tour. Again, it's a consolidated, clustered product development initiative, joining up the dots, if you like. And this has been very, very successful in Switzerland. So we're unashamedly drawing on our own experience, but also examples like the Wild Atlantic Way and the Switzerland Grand Tour in setting out proposals for PEI's flagship project, the PEI Coastal Circuit. But that's not all. In addition to the flagship product, we're also proposing 6 other product development opportunities. And the first of those is soft adventure activity provision. There's a wonderful opportunity of tapping into proven demand trends now of people who are interested in activities, undertaking activities. There's greater interest in an awareness of health and fitness, as we well know, and there's a great opportunity to tap into that, both in terms of water-based activity provision, as we say, it's the islandness, but also other activities such as cycling, walking, equestrian, and indeed certain winter sports. So this is one of the key product development recommendations for the development of soft adventure activity provision. The third product that we're proposing is the First Nations Mi'kmaq Sustainable Tourism Initiative. And congratulations to Doreen. I don't know if Doreen Zark is here today on your well-earned award last night. But this is, again, a wonderful initiative, and it's designed to play a key role in the differentiating Prince Edward Island as a destination, and an opportunity for First Nations to showcase their culture and to offer a range of experiences, be that canoeing and kayaking, fishing, or other cultural initiatives, food, and so on and so forth. The key point here is, and as we've started looking at early actions, is that this initiative has to be built from the ground up. So the first action here we're proposing is a consultation program with the community itself to tease out what are the key drivers, what are the key ambitions that they have that need to be brought into the initiative. But we see this as a wonderful opportunity, both for the Mi'kmaq community but also for Prince Edward Island. The fourth initiative is waterfront development here, and what we've observed here, and Prince Edward Island is not unique in this, and is that in some cases the towns of the island turn their back on the waterfront, on the ocean. And invariably, visitors of all type, be they leisure visitors or business visitors, are drawn to the waterfront. So we see there's a great opportunity to improve the connection between the towns of Prince Edward Island and their respective waterfronts. We've set out a number of proposals there, including greater pedestrianisation, signage, the zoning of certain areas for tourism-related businesses. So preserving important waterfront areas as we move forward into the future. This is an important initiative, and again it ties in to the positioning of the island as an island destination. The fifth product development proposal is the Confederation Trail. And you may say to me, well, we already have the Confederation Trail, to which we would respond, yes, but in our humble view, the island is not making enough of this wonderful asset. It really is an opportunity for walking and cycling, and in winter season, winter sports, from tip to tip. But what we're proposing here is it needs to be animated and further facilities developed to capitalise on the significant investment that has already been put in place. And that includes further investment in signage. We've seen the examples from Switzerland. Signage, interpretation, trails, linking up with the others, an extensive trail system in Prince Edward Island. So linking up with the other trails, linking up with the towns and villages along the length, and offering an experience. So this is another great product. Number 6, the sixth initiative is specifically designed to drive business in the early part of the year. We're calling it, working title, the June Spring Initiative. And it's going to involve a number of things, some of which are already in place, such as the successful Festival of Small Halls. We've got proposals for the development of the Acadian, Evangeline, music and food. We've also proposals for the Cayley music as well, food and other events. So there's a number of dimensions of this, but the key thing is it's incremental. It'll be supported by additional dollars to drive business into the early part of the year. The seventh and final product development initiative is culinary tourism. PI already has successfully positioned itself as a culinary destination. So we're setting out a number of proposals to really drive this forward further and to capitalise on that, and to ensure that there is an even spread of opportunities for visitors to the island to enjoy the wonderful seafood, lobster, which we've enjoyed during our visits, and the other food of the island. So I'm going to move from product onto marketing. and market positioning and communication. And the marketing objectives are to improve the island's value proposition and industry productivity by repositioning from a largely summer destination to a wider experiential product offering and covering a longer season. To increase the desire and intention and delivery of travel to PEI in key market segments, using branding and social media to clearly communicate and positive stories designed to meet customer needs. To increase sales opportunities for commercial partners selling the island through well-researched campaigns. To increase access options by targeting additional air and cruise traffic. So the key requirements to deliver on the marketing objectives are a refocusing on the use of marketing resources from duplication to confusion, and that involves a big move to going fully digital, and that in turn will have implications for the human resource development and training recommendations. An increase in marketing dollars and a parallel intensive product development, as we've seen, and investment in service quality. So if we look at some of the main assets at present are as follows, that impact on the rational attributes of Prince Edward Island is the island location, its authenticity, the beaches and bays, fresh food from land and seas, safe and family friendly, rich in arts, culture and history, countryside historic towns, automobile touring, golf, new conference and cruise destination. So what is the unique selling proposition? Well, it has to be PEI's islandness. And what do we mean by that? The best food and beaches in Canada along the island coastline, home of Anne of Green Gables, the unique island landscape and views, red cliffs and rolling hills. North Cape Rock Reef is longest in North America. Charlottetown, a vibrant capital city on the waterfront and birthplace of Canadian Confederation, and indeed the spirit of the islanders themselves. So if I want to move on now to Pillar 4, which is access and infrastructural facilitation, and that will involve the introduction of innovative pricing and promotion for the Confederation Bridge. That will require, obviously, further discussions between the operators of the bridge and industry. Improved operation of the ferry service, and we're fully aware of the disruptions in the ferry service that occurred during our visits both in June and July of this year. The provision of lay-by viewing points as part of the development of the PEI Coastal Circle. We didn't dwell too much on that, but the flagship project will require investment of putting in place the very best infrastructure. It's not just about signage, but it will involve putting in safe stop-off locations for people to pull their cars in and to enjoy the island. It will involve a unified campaign to improve broadband access, which is an issue. And not just an issue for the tourism sector, but it's an issue for all economic sectors. And continued improvement in air access. The fifth pillar is human resource development. And the proposals here are that the implementation of TAIPAI's 2014 Strategic Business Plan, the priorities set out in that plan are still relevant, even though that was written 2013. The context is very different now. There's not the same labour force issues. But in terms of some of the proposals for management training and for employment development for older persons, we've picked up on that and we believe they are still relevant. We're also proposing setting up informal mentoring support for new operators, the provision of continuous training in digital marketing, which is going to be so important as we move from print to digital, and introduction of tax breaks or fiscal incentives to the older folks to encourage them into supplement the workforce, to modify the rules of the International Experience Canada IEC program, and to promote succession planning in rural areas via tax code or other adjustments. So they're the pillars, the 5 pillars. What will that result in? Well, the prize is great for Prince Edward Island. Currently, in 2016, it is estimated that the island will attract 1.5 million visitors, spending $430 million. We've set out 2 scenarios here. A progressive scenario based upon a 3% growth rate, which will result in 1.75 million visitors after 5 years by 2021, and an additional 80 million in revenue. Now, there's a second scenario there, and that's a stretch scenario, and that's based upon if you, the stakeholders, and everybody who's involved, government and private sector and the community sector working together, if this plan is implemented in full, we believe that the stretch scenario is eminently achievable, and that's based upon a 4% growth in visitor numbers and a 5% growth in revenue. And if that were to be achieved, that would result in the island attracting 1.85 million visitors and a revenue generation of 550 million. So, as you can see, the prize is a great one. And we believe, subject to the implementation of this strategic plan, there's a great opportunity for PEI from moving from being a good destination to one of North America's truly great destinations. And on behalf of all my colleagues in Tourism Development International, we would like to wish you, the stakeholders and the working group, every success with that task. Thank you very much.
I would first like to thank the tourism planners of TDI International for the exceptional work that they have done for us over the last 8 months. Peter, Kieran, thank you very much. It's been wonderful working with you through this process and seeing what PEI tourism can become through your eyes. You and the rest of your team, Stan, David, Robert, Patricia, have been gracious, accommodating, and a great pleasure to work with, so thank you very much. It bears repeating that the last 8 months have been an extensive consultation, perhaps the most extensive, as Kevin said earlier, consultation that we've had in a long time. The working committee is proud of the strategy that has been presented to you today. Our industry is abundant with passionate voices and strong opinions. We don't always agree. But there's one thing we do agree on, and that is we all want our businesses to succeed, and we want our industry to be the best that it can be. Now is the time to call for action. This is industry's strategy to implement strong industry representation as we move forward with this development and implementation plan will ensure all actions are inclusive and consideration is given to the geographic and sectoral needs, with it being top of mind that this is not about administrative boundaries. This is the time for industry to come together to the table and drive the agenda. We can, with a common voice, drive the message and affect the direction and success of tourism sector, of our tourism sector. Pride of sector and our island, and clearly of direction, or clarity, sorry, of direction should ring through as we work to implement change. With additional industry involvement, work will begin immediately to develop a detailed implementation plan and a blueprint for the next 5 years. The goal is to present this plan in the spring of 2017. As co-chairs, Kevin and I would like to thank the industry representatives and funding partners that have given up their countless hours of volunteer time to serve on the working committee, and hundreds of tourism industry stakeholders like yourselves who attended focus groups, forums, and offered their input on the future direction of the tourism industry here in PEI. Our industry is, by every definition, very good. So let's come together now and make it great. I'd like to now, if there's any questions or comments, we have 2 microphones. TDI is here for a bit yet, so they can answer some questions if you want to have any more questions for them. Diane is going to keep some notes. As we said earlier, we're recording, so we can go back and listen. So if there's any questions between Kevin and I and TDI, and if there's anybody else here from the working group that would like to volunteer their answers or input, that would be great too. Any questions?
I was hoping somebody else would go first so that people wouldn't get their backs up or anything. Matthew Jelly, President, Maritime Fund Group. About 2 months ago, we met in Kincora. And the number one criticism then was there's no detail and no meat on the bones. But, you know, wait till November. Unfortunately, I think there's actually less detail here than there was in Kincora. And so this doesn't count as an industry consultation. To put up very high-level stuff without any idea of how it's going to impact us, just because nobody wants to say anything or nobody's prepared to ask a question, doesn't mean it's a consultation, doesn't mean we approve. Or I can certainly speak for myself, it doesn't mean I approve. Comments like private sector levy, comments like creating one voice or one structure have significant ramifications. What the impact is on our regional tourism associations, the word wasn't mentioned in this. Does that mean they're not involved? Are they involved? The last 3 to 4 years have been very good for the tourism industry. The major structural change in that time was guaranteed funding and strengthening of our regional tourism associations. Any strategy that doesn't include that as a go-forward pillar, to me, is a strategy missing legs. They have to be strengthened, not weakened, not consolidated. I've run my business for the last 11 years. Last year we welcomed over 400,000 guests. In that last 10 years, not a single product development officer, not a single marketing official from the Department of Tourism has made any attempt to understand my business. So the idea of me sending more money to a Charlottetown organization that doesn't know how to find its way out of this area has absolutely no appeal to me. During that time, I have not yet hosted an executive director of TaiPai or a president of TaiPai to learn more about my business. Every other amusement park in Atlantic Canada is going out of business. We're growing. Perhaps I have something to offer. This consulting group was too busy to meet with me. I consider that incredibly unacceptable. You met with me in my municipal role as a much larger group. You canceled the meeting with me as one-on-one as an operator. So to say that, you know, people have had input on this strategy and whatever, some have. I didn't. I feel I had something to offer. I feel I have something to offer to the industry. I have given of my time greatly in the past. But for to have a new strategy going forward, it has to engage people in the industry like me, has to engage other operators. There's a huge private sector portion of our tourism industry. It's not just culinary organizations and nonprofits. It includes a large number of entrepreneurs. Their voices have to be heard. They have to be engaged. And they've been what this industry was built on, and they will be what makes it successful going forward. We've had 3 very strong years. The last 2 years in particular, the major product development initiatives in that in our region came from our Regional Tourism Association. We would check with the province each year. Is there something new? Is there something we can get attached to? There wasn't, but we had 2 good years. So talk of raising levy and taxes and everything else to discourage the customers and the progress we've made the last period, again, I have no interest in that at this point. So going forward, this says final presentation, we're talking about an implementation plan, then let's get serious about that implementation plan. Let's get serious about providing details to operators and engaging with them in their communities and in the areas that they exist.
Great. Thanks very much, Matt. Appreciate it. Linda.
Amanda Lowther, Islands Frozen Yogurt Bar in Cavendish, longtime tourism operator. I'm going to assume that the final report is going to be available. Could I ask when that will be available?
It will be up on the website by lunchtime today.
Okay, thank you. Because I like Matt, there's really great stuff in there. I like the idea of the coastal circuit stuff and so on, and that we need to do more around our coastlines. And so I'm going to talk about the things that I am concerned, like Matt. There's even less detail here than there was in Kincora, so my mind is going 75 directions. So I have a whole bunch of questions, so sorry, bear with me. The first one is, what is the vision for Visit PEI? What does that look like in the report? Is there a vision? Is there an explanation of what that might look like?
Do you have any more detail?
The fact that you can't even talk about it spontaneously concerns me.
Sorry, I'm just checking this mic is, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good, okay. Now, the vision for PEI is essentially around reinforcing the distinctive attributes and the distinctive benefits that being an island and being the island destination.
Sorry, you didn't understand my question. I'm sorry, I'll repeat it. The vision for Visit PEI, the Destination Management Organization.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, for the organization. That is a vision around about moving from a situation where the leading role in promoting the destination and the island is taken by very much a governmental and primarily governmental driven organization to one that becomes a true partnership between the public and the private, that moves it away from being I suppose a civil service type structure or a heavily civil service influenced structure to an organization that has a unified vision of how you develop the product and how you market that product and how you give the opportunities to the enterprises promoting the product. I mean, I think we totally agree with Matthew in that respect. The success of this destination totally depends on having strong enterprises. It's much more important to have strong enterprises than strong agencies, but one needs to have a structure where those enterprises can work together with the governmental support in a way that replicates the situation that we've seen in some of the more progressive destinations internationally, where you take the responsibility and the policy making you keep that at a government level, but the actual action and implementation is very much driven by industry and industry requirements.
Thank you. So does your report describe what that will look like, or is that part of the implementation? Like, is that the next step kind of thing?
That is next.
That would be next step.
Next step. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll move on to my next question. My next question is around. Thank you for finally mentioning the family product. It had been seriously lacking before. Can you talk a little bit more about what your vision is for that family product within the report, since all we saw is an emphasis on family market on the slides, but what does that look like and what does that mean?
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, we have, as I said, we tried to listen and picked up on that, and I think the PI Coastal Circuit is going to be a wonderful platform for the family product, and the experience that we have in terms of the research that we obtained for this, and indeed for other work, is that there's an opportunity now to add on certain new products onto existing products, such as the family product market. So if we take for example, the PI Coastal Circuit, this will showcase, it'll be a platform for various themed leisure tourism opportunities, including family, traditional family holidays, and the beach product. And it's the opportunity there really, and we've seen this from other countries through clustering, is to offer the consumer the full family holiday experience in addition to adding on other products and experiences onto that. So it's really about joining up the dots. It's offering an incremental additional component. So we see that as fitting in to the flagship project, the family market.
Okay, thank you. My next question is around the labor market stuff. You mentioned about implementing the TIPI 2014 business plan. Were you actually referring to the human resource plan, or the TIPI business plan, or a combination of both?
It was a combination.
Yeah, it was a combination of both, but I suppose the recommendations where human resource strategy was concerned, it came in the earlier document. They were repeated in the later document, and I suppose one of the important points in that regard is the last look, I suppose, in detail at human resource requirements was back in 2013. Back in 2013, you had quite a different situation in terms of labour force requirements. There wasn't, when the consultants at the time looked at that in detail, they said, well, actually, there isn't a significant issue right at this point in time, but they did have the good sense to say, well, look, things are changing, and we have to look forward to what we do in a situation where we are faced with labour shortages. And being faced with labour shortages is now a reality with the very good year in 2015 and especially 2016. And we've looked at a number of the ideas there and developed them in terms of looking at particularly the impact of bringing back older people into the labour force, addressing some of the issues about student recruitment into the labour force and the commitment in that regard, because one of the things that it appears to us is that there has not been sufficient selling to the provincial population and to the student population as part of that of the real benefits from being involved in the tourism industry. There's a requirement really for a change in mindset. And I think that change in mindset will only take place if you've got a very well developed publicity and PR campaign, which has to be at provincial level to get that understanding of the importance and the continuity of tourism.
And I think most of us would agree with that. But did you also address the needs of the owner-operators as well? Or did you mention that in your report? I know it's in the TIPI report.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. In terms of skills development, in terms of digital marketing development, and so on.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Great. Yep. I'll ask one more question and I'll sit down and let somebody else come here. You talked about the necessity to invest in the infrastructure to support the coastal circuit and the Confederation Trail and so on. Does your report do a costing of what would be needed to effectively implement some of your recommendations?
No, no costing's done at this stage. That's the next stage.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Before the next question, I'd like to just make a couple comments towards Matthew's comments that came forth. I just want to mention to everyone that I understand specifically where Matthew's going in reference to engagement and getting people involved. And we need more people involved in the next steps of this implementation plan. What's been presented today is, again, recommendations. To the point about the RTAs, we need the RTAs, again, to promote and market tip to tip. They've done tremendous jobs in each region. So I want to reiterate that that is critical to us going forth. And with that, we need to determine as industry what's going to happen as the next steps. We have to accept that. And at TIPI, we're up for that. It's not government's decision, it's TIPI getting involved with industry. And that's my big goal, is on the advocacy side, to continue working towards bettering that. So I want to say, again, Matthew, to your comments as well, you know, me getting out to your organization, I unfortunately didn't make it this summer. I apologize, but that will be one of my goals, because I know you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of good to add to this, but we need more people on these committees. And we need the people that want to be there and will be there throughout the process. And we have the best plan going forth. That's all I wanted to mention.
Thank you, Kevin. Sandy Lowther from the Cavendish area, but I've had the pleasure of working and promoting tourism in Charlottetown for 8 years, Eastern PEI for 4 years, even a little bit of work in the Evangeline region. So I really believe I bring a provincial approach to my... I have one question and I have one comment. And that's a follow-up a little bit to what both Matthew and Linda had to say. And we don't have the details here. Yes, there's been all kinds of consultation, but at the end of the day, we need to see the recommendations in detail, what's in the report, before my colleagues in this room can stand up and say, yeah, we support the strategic direction that this is going. There's just no detail here. So the other thing is the one, Peter, that you referenced is on engagement. You referenced that in your country it took 50 municipalities, 3 associations to ensure engagement for success. What the regional tourism associations bring to the table is engagement. You know, if there was the approach to say that they're no longer part of this one central DMO, you've immediately took away 125 operators of engagement who are now serving on boards, serving on working committees. So we're all saying the same thing. So then my question is this, to the chair, Robert, of this steering committee and to the president of our association. Why don't then we include in the report just how important those regional tourism associations are to the engagement and implementation of the plan? I think if that was actually included as a recommendation going forward, we would all feel a lot more comfortable. So that's my question. Could that be included in the report?
There's certainly no disrespect meant. As far as I'm concerned, the RTAs are included, will be included. We need them, as Kevin just said. We need them to be included. They're part of what we do here on the island. They have a significant role to play. And if we didn't mention that strong enough, my apologies.
We don't know if it is mentioned or not because we don't see a copy of the final report. So all we can go by is stage 2, where the complete opposite was in the report in 2 different pages, where it was stated clearly in words to remove the Regional Tourism Association from the structure of tourism on PEI. So again, you can probably see why we're a little confused here. Is, you know, the stage 2 said get rid of them, and now we're saying you're really important, but we don't know if you're in there. So I think going forward, before I could support this particular final presentation or final plan, that be clearly stated in the report.
Okay.
And finally, I want to talk about process a little bit. We have this final presentation, and before we as industry, Cheryl, I'm going to direct this to you. We received an email from you saying we're going to take hold, the government department, of doing a brand new, we've already hired a consultant, our fine friend Stan McPherson is in the room here. We've already hired a consultant. We're going to march ahead with this restructuring, and yet we're getting the final plan now, and that was 2 weeks ago. So there's some disconnect here on process in terms of engagement too. Well, thanks, and maybe you can come up because we're being recorded so we can all hear. Thanks, Cheryl.
Thanks for that. I was waiting for an opportunity to speak to that. What we saw here today, and I think it was outlined at the beginning of the presentation, where'd you go? There you are, was high-level recommendations. And I think what was heard on the cross-island consultations was, wouldn't it be great if we could have an organization that's visitor-focused? Visitors don't recognize administrative bound lines. That involves a lot of people and a lot of organizations and a lot of invested boards. This report addressed it on a very high level. What I'd like to commit to from the provincial side is digging down into those deep details, and that's the correspondence I shared with you and with the executive directors and chairs of the list of this. We do not for a minute underestimate the amount of work that has to be done in governance and consultations. There is no plan to eliminate anybody at this point, but if we hear over and over again from private sector operators that it's confusing, mandates are confusing, organizations are confusing, we're not sure which we should belong to, we're not sure who's servicing the guests. There's enough evidence, in my humble view, that we should take a more detailed view. We're not, there's nothing immediately pending about this. So this was a high-level strategic document. The next step is a very detailed governance structure, consultation, mandate review. It crosses all kinds of things. So for no minute did we underestimate the work that's left to be done. That's why we saw enough and heard enough that, okay, let's roll up our sleeves and really address Pillar 1. Our friends in TDI put into print what they heard from you folks, quite honestly, and what they saw from afar. In, holy smokes, you have a lot of organizations here. You may want to consider opportunities for collaboration, further partnership, and most of all, focusing on the visitor and potential visitors to the island. So that's why there's a subsequent process, Sandy, and I hope you folks will be all involved in that. Okay?
Just down here a bit. I just would like to thank everyone involved in this big task. And it's something, personally, having been involved in the tourism industry for 33 years, that I'm looking forward to, and looking for the industry to be great. And I think this lays a plan that we can all work on together. And it's up to us as an industry to make sure that we're involved and to participate, and we have every opportunity to do that. And I congratulate again, I look forward to working on this with you.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Judy, and I can move this up. Karen Davey, the Inn at St. Peter's, and I'm also a board member on the Island East Tourism Group. My apologies for asking the same question again, but I'm still confused. Does this strategic plan call for the dissolution of the RTAs?
No, it does not.
Okay, thank you. And two, one thing that wasn't mentioned, and it's probably going to be in the strategic plan that will be out this afternoon, but perhaps you get a comment, is on the accommodation or any levy that will be attached, possibly implemented to accommodation sector or hospitality sector.
There's nothing in print that says that we're going in that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Robert, could you clarify that, please? Because there was a slide that did have that line.
Well, you know, we already have the two levies that we already have in terms of Summerside and Charlottetown. Whether we go any bigger than that, it's definitely an industry consultation conversation.
If I might just come in on that in terms of the funding, the future funding. You know, we have said that the most essential thing is to have a reliable, continuous source of public funding for the promotion and development of tourism on the island. We have suggested, and it's a suggestion, it will obviously have to be examined in terms of its feasibility, that might be secured through there being a small part of percentage of the gasoline tax on the island dedicated to or set aside on a continuous basis for tourism promotion and development funding. We have referred to the possibility of that being supplemented by a small levy. If it was the case that to get agreement on having a small part of the gasoline tax being devoted to promotion and development, and obviously gasoline tax is paid by not just the visitors but everybody resident resident automobile user on the island. If it was a case that to get that through, the quid pro quo at government level was that there would be a small levy in the tourism and hospitality sector, then we said I think that's something that people should be open to the possibility of. But we haven't made a definitive recommendation in that regard, but we have suggested that people be open to the possibility of that.
When I sat on the QTS board, we looked at the Scottish destination marketing, some of the work they've done there. It was really interesting, but it kind of didn't fly, didn't move too far. So I'm always interested to see those examples when they take a bigger region, much bigger than ours, and turn it into a destination. But I have a kind of a curious question about Ireland. So what happens when you look at the trail and it runs all down the west coast? What the heck happened to the east coast? Because, I'll give you an Atlantic example, and that is that when you look at our neighboring provinces, there are whole communities that used to rely on tourism that are pretty much ghost towns, because in those provinces they built the big multi-lane highways and people just don't go on to those nice coastal routes anymore. And I ask that question partly because I'm curious, but partly because I think that there are operators who will be thinking, where does this leave me? Do I get left out? Okay. So I'm curious about how it worked in Ireland.
Okay, but just to, if I could elaborate a little bit on that one, and recognizing the fact that PAI is unique in its own right, in that you have an opportunity to have a full province route. In the Irish context, the Wild Atlantic Way came about as a result of the fact that there was a disconnect, if you like, an imbalance in tourism between the east and the west of the country. Dublin, the capital city, is in the east, and Dublin Airport accounts for 85% of all international arrivals. So folks in the western part of the 12 western counties and the 3 western region, it was very much driven a bottom up of saying, listen, we're going to have to do something big to sort of address the imbalance. So it came about, and I take Matthew's point on board, that it doesn't just stop at today's presentation. It's not an end in itself. Consultation, has to start today. But that's how it happened, is the people on the ground, both people working agents, people, private sector operators, and the 12 municipalities. They said, we simply have to do something to create an initiative of scale. And that's what they have done. They have managed to increase their share of Ireland business over the last 5 years. The dwell time has been extended. People are staying longer. And so it is slightly different, but I think there are certain learnings that P and I can take from that.
One of the things when we were talking with our working group, and that came up, which kind of brought it together for most of us, was visualizing, we have 1,000 kilometers of coastline. So how do we get people to do that 1,000-kilometer coastline and really experience the island? And so we're using analogies like the necklace and the gems on the necklace, the string of pearls, that type of envisioning. What we're looking at is that coastal circuit drive, a touring route, the Grand Necklace touring route, something. I'm not a brand developer, but coming up with that. So you don't have to. You can experience the north, you can experience the east, you can experience central, and you can find your way around the island. And that's where we were thinking about. We kind of, like, we all sort of had that when we talked about the necklace, was like, oh, okay. So, if that helps.
I think just on the question of, what happens with the rest, or the interesting, I suppose, experience of what happened in Ireland, the biggest strategic issue at the time was the loss of share and loss of business by western counties because of the access situation. But the success of the Wild Atlantic Way then spurred people and communities in the eastern part of the country, particularly the inland eastern part of the country, to say, what have we got now that we can develop as another attractive brand proposition? And a brand called Ireland's Ancient East, which focused on the fact that you had all the small historical towns and so on in the river valleys and so on in the east, developed, and that's now becoming a highly successful brand as well. So one spurred another.
Well, now I really have to go.
Linda.
So I have one comment and one more question. My comment relates a little bit to the work that Cheryl and Sandy were talking about, and I'm hoping, and I'm pretty sure Stan will delve into this. I think it's important to understand why people are saying that they're confused around who does what, and to dig deep into what the issue really is. My gut feeling is there are operators who don't know, who are confused about who does what, but I suspect that those operators are not in this room, which relates back to my comment earlier about working with owner-operators to make sure that they understand the industry, that they understand their role and engagement in the industry. So I think that's some of it. I think another part of it is I suspect is operators are saying, I'm paying dues all the time. I'm paying for QTS if I'm an accommodation operator. I'm paying dues to TIPI. I'm paying dues to my RTA. That doesn't mean that they're not engaged, and it doesn't mean that they don't believe that those organizations shouldn't exist. So I'm hoping that the consultants will dig deep into figuring out what the actual issues are before making comments or suggestions and recommendations about where we need to go, because I suspect that the people who are really truly engaged, that were in Kincora or that are in this room, do understand why we have multiple organizations, what their roles are. They may not be happy about it, they may not want to pay all the money, but I think we need to better understand what the real issue is. So that's my comment.
Point taken.
My question then is, okay, so we're talking about implementation. So it's the now what? Okay, we're going to take these high-level recommendations and do the implementation. Can you, Robert, tell us what your vision is as to how this is all going to come together? What's this going to look like? How are we going to be engaged? Are you going to have a committee? Just tell us how you see this going forward so we understand what the next step is.
So we are going to be looking, we already have with TIPI, we have a strategic leadership committee, so we'll be putting that committee right to work in terms of helping us with this. Our working committee will be getting together very shortly to look at what is that implementation plan, how does it look, what is the roadmap for that. I don't have the answers right here today for you on what that map looks like, but in the very near future we will be getting the strategic leadership committee together with TIPI as well as our working group, and we will be putting a plan together. We want to make sure that we have as much, if not all, the answers for you by the time we have our spring meeting. So that's our deadline, and we're going to work backwards to put a timeline together.
Morning, Carl Nicholson, PI Restaurant Association. Just a lot of times we get talking about where's the money going to come from, and a lot of times it's focused back on operators to come up with the money, and I think part of this has to be the province. If you look at the growth in revenue from, say, 2008, when we saw the downturn in the economy, to 2016, and if it grows $100 million and all of a sudden we're collecting 9% for the province, you know, there's $9 million for the province in sales tax revenue that wasn't there in 2008. So a lot of times when I get talking to politicians in a down economy and they say, how's your business? I say, well, I'm not collecting as much sales tax revenue. Then they get the picture that it affects everybody. So I think they need to be part of the equation, that if we're successful and we're able to work together to grow the industry and grow the revenue, then they benefit from the growth in revenue. And putting a portion of that back to the industry is only going to help them.
Agreed. There has been conversation about the Manitoba model. I'm not sure here if anybody's familiar with the Manitoba model that's out there in terms of the percentage. And I'm forgetting the number in my head at the moment, but there is a percentage.
96.4.
96.4. So if you want to just even Google 96.4 Manitoba, and it's an interesting philosophy and process.
4%, Robert, of the revenue per year goes to tourism directly.
So like a pay-to-play type. So that can be part of our discussions as well. I say can be, should be. Any other questions?
James Tingley, part of the working group, management group. I just, no questions, just a comment. I'm really proud of this document. I'm really excited about the document. I'm excited about the recommendations. Are we going to do all the recommendations? That's for us to determine, for us to work together. You know, Sandy, Linda, I will admit at some of our meetings, I too said, okay, when are they leading us to water? Like where are the details? And I was reminded, looking at the terms of reference and everything else, that these were going to be high-level recommendations, and then back to the industry to work on those recommendations, whether we implement them or whether we don't. Who's all involved? What does a visit PEI look like? What does the coastal circuit look like? What does the name look like? Is back to us with support from the province, right? From a perspective of working together, the collaboration. So, you know, we did all sit around. We are jazzed about it, but whether everything goes through, whether a levy, that would have to be up to us. There's no question about that, right? Okay. Definitely. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I'm Jay McDonald, also a member of the working group. In March of 1979, my wife and I, with the backing of the Provincial Lending Authority, purchased a cottage business on the shore in Stanhope. As far as I can tell, 79 to now is 37 years. We bought it in March, opened for our first guest the end of June, and before we had our first guest, I was asked to be a member of the Brackley Stanhope Dalvey Tourist Association. Along with that, I became the representative from the Brackley Stanhope Dalvey Tourist Association to the Tourist Association, which was the predecessor of TIPI. Went to those meetings. There would be 32 people on the board, I think. And at any particular meeting, there might have been 16 or 18 that would be present. And so then the next meeting was spent when there was a different mix of people, telling the people at the second meeting what had happened in the first meeting. And then the third meeting told people what happened in the first and the second meeting, and so on. And I spent 2 years in that process, and I left the Tourist Association board vowing never to return. Over the years, that morphed into a Tourism Industry Association instead of a Tourist Association. Very different framework, different point of view. I think back in '79, we also had one map for the province. Some marketer came along and said, well, if we put names on the three sort of bumps in the province, we can have 3 drives and people will stay for 3 days instead of driving on and off. And there was a habit of driving on and off. And then somebody came up with the idea of, well, maybe 4, maybe 6. We could stretch it from 3 days into 6 days. That's a good idea. Why don't we do that? Along the way, we've had other associations. Groups have come and gone. The RTAs have been formed, and we benefit, my wife and I, with our business in town, which is now the Elmwood Heritage Inn, sold the By the Bay cottages in 1986, thankfully. We benefit from the work that is done in the RTA in Charlottetown. They have been extremely good doing a lot of things that have supported us as operators, as well as bringing people in and making Charlottetown known as a destination. I think my point is that we're on an evolutionary trail. Will it be 6 RTAs and a DMO? Who knows? In 1979, no one envisioned anything except for Brackley Stanhope Dalby Tourist Association vis-a-vis the Cavendish Tourist Association. And now we have a vibrant industry that is in many more places than we've ever had before. The work that is done in Georgetown, Rustico, West Point, Evangeline, and going up to Lennox Island as part of the working group, that was an eye-opener. We're so far ahead of where we had been that if we allow this to evolve with the high level view, I guess is what it's called. Another term that came up as we were doing this working group thing that I really enjoyed, it was bringing in somebody who doesn't breathe our air. Now, I hadn't heard that before. Maybe it's a common term. But they breathe Irish air. And we're connected across the Atlantic, but they breathe Irish air. And they came to look at us with different eyes, different nostrils maybe, and allow us to evolve, to come to a new location that will be evolved from again. And we'll have one map for a while, and then maybe someone will say, gee, we need 12 maps. That's fine. Let's do it. But let's take from now until the meeting in March to have significant engagement. And that is not just the people in this room, but the people who are down the road from you that don't come to meetings. Say, come to the next meeting with me. And let's see if we can reinforce our RTA, we can blend our RTA, we can put a new inn or bed and breakfast or accommodation or cycle business or whatever on this part of the route, because I'll tell you, there are not cycle places every place we want to send our guests. There are only a few places that will rent bikes. If these recommendations are implemented, even partially, there'll be an opportunity for people to say, I can be in Central Bedeque and rent bikes. And all of a sudden, there's a reason to get to Central Bedeque and enjoy that section of the, I think someone else had said, I think it was Rob, the Wild Island Way, our circuit. So I want to thank you. I've enjoyed meeting both of you and the rest of your team. And it has been a great effort, as Robert and Kevin had said, on the working group, one of which I join you with James. I'm extremely proud to have been part of. Thank you.
This is my last time, I promise.
It's okay.
Just in case people think that when we pose questions that we're not happy, that's not the case. Personally, I really like the fact that there's the 5 pillars in there. I think that that was missing out of our past strategies. Our past strategies were much more focused on marketing. This is a much bigger vision for Prince Edward Island, so I congratulate you on that. And I also know how hard some members of the committee worked. I have to recognize Tracy Singleton and Bernadette Power. I know how many hours they discussed this. If it wasn't for them, I'm not sure we'd have the Tourism Matters website. I know that they really care, and I want to thank them. The fact that some of us are up here posing questions and challenging means we're interested. It doesn't mean that we don't like it. And I want you to really realize that we do care. We know how hard you work. There's some really good stuff in here. So I just wanted to thank you on my behalf, because I know how hard you worked at this.
Thanks very much, Linda. Good morning.
Good morning. I saw something that was very exciting whenever you, a slide about island-wide tourism industry training. I don't know how much focus this will be put on, or if it's just kind of a generic point right now, but honestly, I have had such success at my location in terms of describing the 3 coastal drives that we have, and explaining to our guests how much is involved with each of those coastal drives. Quite often, we've actually had many people just extend their stay with us because they didn't realize just how much we had to offer. And in turn, they've had more experiences and have spent more money. So I think that was really exciting, and don't know where that focus will be, but I think it's important. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ian, and I think we'd like your expertise and involvement.
Got it.
I promise this will be my last one too. I just want to echo Linda's comments. You know, I've served on I look around this room, many people in this room who've given freely of their time to help guide the direction of our collective industry. And I really want to thank my industry colleagues as well as my public sector colleagues who have served on this and worked hard. Nothing, and thank you to TDI. It's been a joy working with you. I've enjoyed your sense of humor and the fact that you are looking at it with fresh eyes. Just finally, I just want to say there's nothing more important to any industry association than their governance structure. Everything flows from governance. And I look for, Cheryl, thank you for your clarification on my question. I didn't stay at the mic to thank you. It's just really important, we're seeing this all around the world right now, that when we talk governance, it's not dismissive consultation, that it's inclusive consultation, and that we work together to find those perfect models. So Stan, you have your work ahead of you, and I look forward to sitting at that table having these discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandy. Any other comments or questions? No? And Linda, I appreciate your comment about the hard work. We couldn't have put this together in terms of all the elements that happened, without everybody that was on our working board, and coming up with the Tourism Matters website. Again, it took a lot of people around the room, and certainly Tracy played a key role in that, as well as Bernadette and everybody else that was on our working committee. It was a lot of input from everybody putting this together and driving the bus, I guess, is a good way to put it. So thanks very much for that comment. Any other comments from anybody? Any other questions? It's a time for coffee. Okay. So we'll break for coffee. Coffee is in the room just out back. Don't forget, we will have our fundraising silent auction is still there. Actually, it's located there. We're still raising money for the Scholarship Foundation. So,
just one last comment, Robert. I'd like to personally again thank Peter and his team, Kieran, for all the hard work they've done up to now. It's very much appreciated, and we look forward to working into the future towards the betterment of Prince Edward Island. So thank you. And everyone as well, on your way out, there is an infographic piece that was a takeaway that we created with some of the information and the highlights. Please take one on your way out. And the report, again, will be available just after lunch today, which is the final report online on our Tourism Matters website. Thank you.